Hello and welcome to Radio Free Nintendo. It is January 16th, 2025. I am James Jones. I'm joined today by Mr. John Lindemann.
It's great to be here, James.
Great to have you, John. Mr. Guillaume Veillette.
Good evening.
And Mr. Greg Leahy.
Ahoy, hoy, everyone.
This is episode 910, and there is nothing to talk about at all. But I don't even know we're recording an episode
It's
today.
a day that is bereft of news.
It is no games, no news, no life. Just
Nope.
a complete mess. Complete mess.
It's pretty sad.
I guess we could talk about this Switch 2 thing.
Yeah, so finally we don't have to call it the Switch successor anymore.
Well, unless you're looking at Nintendo's URL for their website, where it's nintendo.com/successor, which is amazing.
No.
Yes.
What?
It
No
is.
way.
It is. I will put the URL in the chat.
It's true.
Right there.
An update from Nintendo.
Nintendo.com/successor /ENUS.
Wow.
They didn't want people trying to scrape their URLs for the name, so they just called it fucking successor on the URL.
That is so funny.
I respect it. I respect the fact that they're like, we have to fucking do this shit because you fucking people are fucking insane.
I feel like someone determined enough could have found it, just trying the next one, successor, after.
I mean, I would assume that if you went to successor before they announced it, it was just a blank page.
Right.
So yeah, this is the Switch 2. The leaks were more or less accurate. So basically what the mock-ups you've seen weren't mock-ups. Now this goes back to the CES event last week where Nintendo definitely sent lawyers to go talk to this company that claimed to have acquired one on the black market. Because that would be stolen property. Yeah, like there were images of this hardware out there that were basically dead on because they were made from real hardware. And so what you've seen is what it is. So what we have bigger screen. We don't know what the technology of the screen is. I don't think that's come up yet.
How come I've heard that it's not OLED, but
because that was what the rumors were. But those were earlier rumors. I haven't heard anything since then to confirm or deny that. That may have been pre-production hardware. I don't know. We'll find out. Bigger Joy-Con, significantly larger Joy-Con. They have more of a bump on the back for grip at the top. They are so this is the whole magnetic connected thing. We have an email about that. We'll get to that in a minute. There does appear to be a mechanical connection as well because there's a button to disengage it. The kickstand is very similar to the OLED kickstand in that it's infinitely adjustable, although it's U-shaped rather than a solid piece of metal. There's an extra button on this thing. People are referring to it as the C button because in the leaks, it was a C button. It's directly under home on the right Joy-Con. We do not know what it does. There is the Joy-Con grip. This is the little thing that you attach to the Joy-Con to give it the strap and to make it slightly more ergonomic in your hand. I say slightly because it's not ergonomic at all. Is different for this. And in the trailer, so all we got was an unnarrated 2-minute 21-second trailer.
Yeah, a very passive-aggressive trailer, in my opinion.
I don't know if it's passive-aggressive. I think it's just we're just showing it. This is it. We're showing it.
Take your news.
We're gonna we're gonna let people announce they're working on this thing because now it has a name. Yep. The grips are a little bit different. They click into the same the rail. But it's not really a rail. The part that comes out of the Joy-Con to attach to the Switch is much bigger on this one. And the Joy-Con grip seems to kind of sit around it. And there is a implication that the Joy-Con, when it's in the grip, has effectively mouse-like functionality. You can scroll around with it and click and stuff. From a hardware standpoint, that's pretty much all we got that's new. There is the other thing that they showed that was new is that there is a new Mario Kart, which shouldn't be surprising to anybody. We didn't really get any real info about it. We got about, I'd say, 5 seconds of video of it being played. It appears that there are more racers. I think 15 is the most we see at any one time. 12 is the limit in the current Mario Kart. I refuse to call it that name. And there's 24 spots on the starting grid from a shot they had of the starting grid. But this is almost less information than we got from Odyssey and its reveal trailer. So, this is it. In terms of information that was revealed out of that, they said we'd get another direct in April, right?
Yeah.
We're looking for the date. Is it April 2nd? Yeah.
Yeah.
They reiterated that it plays Switch 2 games as well as Nintendo Switch games with an asterisk.
Well,
that it plays.
Well,
go ahead.
They confirmed that it plays physical games as well.
Yeah. That's what I was getting at. It plays both physical and digital games. Certain Nintendo Switch games may not be supported or fully compatible with Switch 2. Details at a later date. I'd assume that means Labo, because the Switch 2 is bigger. It is physically bigger and would not fit into the slot for the Labo stuff.
Right.
I've
got my fingers crossed that games that only don't use the screen, don't use the unit in any way, but just use the Joy-Con are still compatible. Stuff like, I just played it. Fuck me.
1-2 Switch.
The Ring Fit. Fit. Yeah. So people were like, well, you can't fit the new Joy-Con in there. Yeah, but you can fit the old Joy-Con. And I don't know, if Nintendo is nice about it, there's nothing that prevents the Switch 2 from connecting with the Switch 1, Joy-Con.
Yeah, I mean that is, I hadn't thought about that, but that would make sense if they made that possible. Especially if they also maybe release the other option is release a Ring Fit ring to go with it.
Sure, if they've got the next Ring Fit to that they've been working on, then sure, they've got it's in their best interest to not make the old one backwards compatible, I guess.
Yeah, but either way, I feel like that's a game they'll solve it for, because it was very successful. But besides that, no conversation on games. We're going to get that in April. No details on the launch. No amount, no price, no date. They did announce that there's going to be an international tour for showing this thing off. Switch had something very similar. The dates for that tour, some of them are TBD, but of the announced dates, they run through June 1, which I would presume means the launch is after that, because it wouldn't make a ton of sense to do the tour after the system's out. People could just play it.
Yeah, which jives with what we figured, what we've already discussed. We figured that March was too early, and so June was probably the next most sensible drop date. Also, no details on Nintendo Online either.
Nope. Presumably because of the backwards compatibility, it's also part of that. But it would be good to see it.
And see if there's any improvements or anything added.
Yep, I do think the there is I'm trying how do I want to word this. It looks like the cartridge slot is the same, which means this if there are Switch 2 physical games, which I presume there will be, but who can say? Then that would presume that they are also coming on a similar slot that is back or forwards compatible with the slot of the old system. There's color around the sticks, which is weird.
Yeah, it looks. Is it just me, or do the sticks look like they're a bit lower down and closer to the body of the unit?
I'm not sure. I'm wondering. I was trying to figure out if the bottom, because they drop down below the bezel of the original Switch, and it seems like the bottom of them is flush.
Right, and this new thing, as the orange or whatever is taking its spot around, under the hat of the stick, and makes that wet sound. That's terrible. I was listening. I was watching the trailer with the headphones on for a while, and after a while I turned off the sound because it was this is weird. This is disturbing. But you can see the thing basically fill up the space that used to be empty on the old Joy-Con. So I kind of wonder if it's just is this a rubber kind of thing to prevent the the dust from getting in there or what. But also it did seem to me, John, that like they seem to be lower to me. But it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
It's like a boot on like a car part where there's like a rubber seal around it to keep stuff from getting in.
Right.
But
is this supposed to, make us think like, okay, the drifting problems are gone? I don't know.
I mean, it would help. It would, because it's one of the things that can cause drifting, but one of them is just it's a mechanical connection. Eventually, it fails.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, again, hasn't that been discussed? The notion there could be Hall effect sticks now,
could be.
So it doesn't. It wouldn't. You don't get the parts wearing on each other in the same way in that case.
Yeah. We do not
but we don't know that at this junction.
Yeah. As with many things in the system, we do not know. What we know, we basically already knew, which is funny. I was a little surprised to see this is kind of a one-off. The international tour only has one stop in Japan right now, and it's at Makuhari, which is a big facility. Like, that is a big convention center. That doesn't mean they're going to use all of it. But if they're going to use it, like that presumably they're going to use a big chunk of it. So, like, there's a pretty serious amount of, hey, we're going to let people touch this thing. June also feels like it's probably a little ways out from the launch date, or before it, because with the original Switch, they did the international tour. There weren't any near me. There never are. And then, sometime later, and keep in mind, we're talking about a 3-month window here. Or a 2-month window, really. They showed up in stores in demo units before the launch. Not long before the launch. It was like a couple weeks. And so you were able to play them in stores and then not pre-order them because the pre-orders have been sold for months. But in theory, at some point, you could have acquired one. So I'm going to guess there's probably still that window there of here's the demo tours. I think they start in April and run through June. Maybe they start in May. And then here's the it's showing up in there's the ones in New York are April 4th. So they're actually pretty early. Pretty soon after the big blowout. I would guess there's probably a few weeks after that initial round of tours finishes before it's in stores. I would think we're probably gonna have another round of like, hey, now you can play them on your own in stores and stuff. The facilities that they've got rented in New York, Los Angeles, and Dallas, which is a weird combination, are not big, but you do have to pre-register, and then there's a lottery if who gets in.
Yeah, I'm looking at LA right now. It's in Hollywood.
Yeah.
I've not been to Television City, so I don't know how big that venue is. But it doesn't look big. It's not. It looks like a theater sort of size thing.
Yeah.
Kind of.
And it looks like they're about 2 days, so it's basically you probably get like an hour ticket and you get to experience some of the games. I wonder how much these have value because not that many people get to play them, and like they picked 3. Like in the U.S., they picked 3 cities. And like that is not even remotely close to being exhaustive.
No.
So like, I wonder if this is more just for PR than anything. Like I said, there's only one in Chiba in Japan.
Yeah.
Which is outside Tokyo. So like, fuck Kansai, where Nintendo is based, I guess, and has a museum where they could host this themselves. Fuck that. But yeah, in terms of the actual, like, what got announced today, it was 2 minutes and 20 seconds of not a lot. And that's pretty much it. So, John, I'm going to ask you a question.
Sure.
Are you going to buy this thing on the first day? Or are you already there?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, I will openly say, yeah, I probably am.
Yeah, I mean, really, it'll come down to games for me. If there is something that I really want to play day one, which is not necessarily Mario Kart, because Mario Kart is just going to be ubiquitous and around forever.
Right.
And it will sell about 150 million copies.
Yep.
So yeah, it really depends on what else is really, what other launch titles are there.
You have to
it also
figure...
depends on how annoying it is to try to get your hands on one on the first day.
That is the challenge. There was a... Who reported it? There was a report today from one of the Japanese Forbes writers. I'm blanking on his name. Mochizuki, who said that Nintendo plans to ship 20 million of these things. It's Bloomberg, not Forbes. I'm sorry. Plans to ship 20 million of these things in the first year, which is a bit more than what they did with Switch. It's a little bit more than the PS4. That's their goal. So maybe it'll be available, but that's over the course of a year. Yeah, I probably will try to get one just because I figured they're going to launch with something, and Mario Kart is not nothing. I don't think Mario Kart's a launch game, personally. Just my guess.
Yeah.
I think it's probably like month 2.
Yeah, I mean, if they launched with Metroid Prime 4, all right then. Okay, fair enough, Nintendo. I will buy your console on day 1.
If it's cross-gen?
Yeah.
Or if it's just got enhancements on Switch 2?
Yeah, I would probably.
Same SKU.
I would probably go in for that, yeah. I'd probably go in for that.
Yeah. I think the other question is, and Guillaume touched on it, like what hardware that we already have is compatible? Like, can I use my gamepad for it? Except there is that weird button that we don't know what it does. It has a C on it. I was trying to think what C words there could be. That's we got to be careful with that one.
Phrasing. Yeah.
So episode title, trying out new C words.
Yep. Well, and there was also the speculation that you may be able to use the Joy-Cons as a mouse, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, and in the trailer there is something that shows that. So I'll read GX's email on that topic. GX writes, I guess I already gave that away. Dear RFN crew, even before today's Switch 2 reveal, I have been mildly obsessed. Excuse me. I have been mildly obsessed with the rumors of mouse functionality in the new controllers. Mouse control has long stood out as one of the dividing lines between PC and console gaming, but mouse control certainly makes a lot of sense for certain kinds of games, like first-person and menu-heavy software. Mario Maker feels especially appropriate, but games like Balatro, Diablo, Vampire Survivors, and of course, Hypnospace Outlaw feel like good candidates, imitating their PC counterparts. How do you feel about the prospect of mouse functionality in the controller? Would you even feel comfortable chilling out on the couch with a tray to operate your Joy-Con mouse? What games do you think would benefit from this kind of input? Or is this control just best left to the PC gaming piece? I don't have anywhere to mouse in my living room, so it would have to be like a dedicated tray I bring to the couch so I have a surface upon which to mouse.
Yeah,
well, I know just the vehicle, the game, the bit of software that could help us in this regard, because it has done so in the past. It's a franchise unafraid to ship with something to help you best enjoy its unique control scheme. The return of Kid Icarus Uprising, or maybe a sequel or something. It's like, they forget spinning a globe. It's like using a mouse. And it ships with its own tray to this end.
I didn't know where you were going with this. I thought, like, where's it? Like, Let's Mouse or what is it?
Let's tap but mouse. No, you had to provide your own box unless you bought like the deluxe edition came with a box.
But they call it Kid Icarus Uprising. It came with the stand originally, the easel or whatever.
Unless you bought it digitally and then you were just fucked.
Fair, yeah, but it's already been there, and it would feel honestly like a betrayal of the game's essential personality to have some sort of port or sequel or whatever that didn't have that component to it.
Well, the thing that has me wondering about this whole arrangement, though, is that it feels like it would be a very awkward mouse, because it's not very wide. It's like my palm resting on it feels like it would be a little strange. Certainly not ergodynamic. But to your point, Greg, the fact that it would be awkward, not ergodynamic, and uncomfortable does lead credence to there being a Kid Icarus Uprising or Kid Icarus Uprising sequel. Because obviously the people who played it had no idea how your hand should be at any given point.
The person who made it is a man that uses a trackball an inordinate amount. I think that's basically the explanation for that. And we had a sort of virtual one, the spinning the globe analogy, as I mentioned, being in the game script for how you should kind of picture what you're doing by, using a stylus on the touchscreen in that case. But I mean, of course, you could think about it wouldn't be the first time they've had this kind of functionality. The Super Nintendo mouse, of course, was there, so it could clear the way for the return of Mario Paint and even Mario and Wario on NSO. Let's go,
But you actually, and GX mentioned Hypnospace Outlaw, but I believe you could actually plug a USB mouse in and play Hypnospace Outlaw with it.
Yeah, you could.
Yep. Now, the good thing with the Switch was because it had touchscreen, I just played some Blatro this week and actually got a clear. I haven't gotten a clear in a long time. It's really frustrating sometimes. I played it almost entirely with touchscreen. So it was fine. I just blap through it. But I talked about a game, Valhalla, where I actually found playing it with the gamepad was preferable to playing it with the mouse, but I could see people who would like the way the mouse worked, and that would be a benefit. I guess it's going to be a question of, one, if it's true, because Nintendo didn't explicitly say it, and two, how does it feel?
Just really, there was this little bit where the two of them, the two Joy-Con detached, kind of raced each other along this not particularly existent sort of surface. It kind of suggested that it wouldn't be unique to one Joy-Con, the way that the IR sensor was unique to the right Joy-Con in the case of Switch. And obviously it's quite oblique, isn't it, really? I mean, if we hadn't had so much pre-briefing on this from various leaks and things, I think we might be a bit more kind of puzzled by what the implications of that even were. But that would appear to sort of substantiate it, and I guess it's again it's quite a long time before we seemingly we'll actually be getting details on that, and the beginning of April. But no, I thought how much they'll kind of leverage it is always an interesting question, because a lot of the time when you get a feature like this, they're going to leverage it at the start. In some fashion, that's pretty much a guarantee. And then whether it has any durability in that regard is very much open to question.
Yeah, I mean, my thought was that it would be an easier way for more obscure PC ports to come over. So they wouldn't they wouldn't have to, smaller developers wouldn't have to waste resources on consoleifying the controls.
I still think you would, though, because if you're playing it handheld, it's not viable to do the mouse thing anymore.
Yeah.
I would think you'd offer it as a feature, as a differentiator, but I still think it's worth making the effort to make it work somehow. My immediate thought I had missed the mouse rumor, or I'd forgotten it. I don't know. Both are possible. And it never occurred to me. So I watched this thing, and then immediately went to work. So didn't consume any discourse. It had not occurred to me that it was a mouse until I saw somebody mention it. I was like, oh, that's why they showed them. Because I just thought, because there's a lot of the hardware just kind of flying around and doing shit without anyone touching it in the trailer.
Look, if somebody, Guillaume was talking about the sort of perhaps not entirely pleasant Foley work that was done on that. But I'm looking forward to like a fan-made remix where it's like all music and sound effects from Transformers the movie, because they basically just fucking Galvatroned the Switch, didn't they?
Yeah,
I mean,
pretty much.
We just need somebody doing an Orson Welles impersonation, you know, saying, "Behold, Switch 2." It was just like, here's the old Switch, and specifically the non-OLED one, you know, so the expansion of the screen size was like more impressive. And yeah, it just got morphed into this new form, which again would have had more impact if we hadn't seen as much of the, you know, the what we believe to be the, you know, the final form factor just in these past couple of weeks or so. Stuff like the goalpost kickstand. Like, I'd already seen that, you know, whereas like just a couple of weeks ago, that would have come as more of a surprise, I guess, you know. I mean, I get the one thing that seemed apparent to me was just the fact that with the kind of obviously originally when they had the neon blue and red with the Joy-Con and all that, the idea, the notion behind having the mismatched colors was, you know, that, to make it that these were detachable. Right. That these are entirely kind of functional controllers by themselves. So the way they're kind of playing that down now, is I guess it's like, well, people know that. They kind of like, we don't need to like, hammer that home as much because people know what a Switch is. This is still called Switch 2. But so we can make that kind of more subtle with the connector part and the kind of that bit around the analog stick that was already mentioned. There's just that little bit of visible colouring once they snap together. But it seems to be like, what we want it to look better. We want it to look kind of more sleek and kind of slick once it's assembled. Like we want it to look less like it's two things stuck onto it and more like it almost could be one solid piece unit now. It maybe just to look a little bit more kind of premium. And also, I guess with this new way that they connect together rather than the rail mechanism, which had its problems. I talked about that, you know, my pre-OLED Switch, the one rail started to kind of wear out and it became unreliable in terms of you keep losing the detection of the left Joy-Con on that. With that new mechanism, it just kind of maybe it just snaps in and feels more like one solid piece rather than, you know, these kind of two bits that a little bit loose on the edge. So it kind of felt like they were trying to back up that, you know, something that's like a hardware thing, that's like a mechanical thing with the aesthetic itself. Like it's more solid black, one piece with just these little allusions to the Switch identity of the controllers separate and they function independently.
It is also interesting that the inside of the Switch where it connects to has the color as well. Which I'm a little surprised because they made a lot of money selling alternate Switch Joy-Con.
Yeah, it does make you wonder about that, doesn't it? Maybe the ones that are sold separately will get to be more diverse, but the ones that are bundled in, like I said, maybe the mission is you make it look more like it's one solid unit, you know, and give it that more premium kind of look and feel. But yeah, that is kind of interesting. It's like that. So once you take it apart, it's like, oh, then you get to see the neon color. Then you get to see that this is still a Joy-Con, you know, kind of like the originals, and that, you know, it's a separate controller. But it's like playing that down when it's as much as it can when it's snapped in.
Yeah, it's there's a lot we can sit here and try to dissect. Pretty obvious that the bases aren't going to be compatible because looking at it, the bases, the old Switch, the new Switch is wider than the old base. So cool. All those Switch bases I have are useless now. I get to buy new ones. Yay. I had seen someone suggest that the charger is actually a higher voltage charger than the old one. And so in that respect, it would still need a new charger anyway. So again, yay. The Joy-Con itself has a battery light. If you remember the Joy-Con before, like, didn't it use the battery? No, the Joy-Con had a light. The Switch, controller just displayed it through a prism or through a piece of glass. And that's still true. Okay. So that's still there. Bezel's a lot smaller. yeah, it's kind of it for right now until we get to see what games are coming to it. I did when I realized the mouse thing. My first thought, maybe because I've been playing WarioWare Move It, is God, the WarioWare team. They're going to make so many uses of this thing that just seem really ill-advised in the middle of other gameplay. And they're going to love it. They're going to love it. They're going to think this is the best. It won't be. It'll be terrible. It'll be terrible, but they're going to love it. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, a lot of these hardware features will only make sense when we see them in context, right? In the context of whatever Nintendo plans to do with them, with the software that they make. So, like, it's kind of like when the dual screen, when the Nintendo DS was revealed, and we didn't know it was a touch screen at first. We okay, why do I need two screens? And then it makes sense. Like, okay, there's a touch screen, and also I can draw clouds for Yoshi here. Okay, woohoo. So once Nintendo reveals, their productivity suite, maybe this will all make sense. Okay, it's a mouse because you've got Mario Word and Yoshi's spreadsheets and
get fucked, AAA clock.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. Well, there's not much we can do other than wait for April 2nd, I guess.
Yeah, I mean it's weird that now this thing is out there. You would think we'd have a lot to say about it, but we really don't, because they, besides speculating what that C button is that they edited the C off of in the trailer, which is interesting because we've seen images of it. Chat. Is there a chat button? It seems very un Nintendo because it seems very un Nintendo because it's not on my phone.
It's a long time between now and April. Are we just going to go down the dictionary of
I think so.
words and just keep going until we think we hit on the likely candidate for what it stands for?
I think every week each one of us needs to bring a C word that we think it could stand for.
I think it stands for Cho Makaimura, which is the Japanese name for Super Ghouls and Ghosts.
Oh, it's a dedicated
Super Ghouls and Ghosts launching button.
It's way down there too, so you don't accidentally press it in the middle of something else. Because does it just launch Makaimura, like a random Makaimura game, or does it launch a specific one?
Given that it's C button and the Cho is the super bit, right? Nah, it's gotta be. It'd be dishonest if it launched the original one.
It's obviously concubine, and when you press it, it generates a virtual waifu. So there you go.
Oh no!
As if we didn't already have enough of those on the Switch.
That's
you can never have enough of those, Guillaume.
Yeah,
you only need one once you find your true waifu, but up until that, you need an infinite supply so you can identify the one for you.
Yep. Hey, and sometimes finding your one true waifu that's the good part of it.
I was going to ask if you sure you want to finish that, but I guess you did. So, all right. I was going to give you a chance.
Sometimes that's the fun.
So, to me, this whole, teaser for the Switch 2, yes, it was to show off, what it looks like, but it seems to me like maybe it was just as important to them to tell us, okay, let us be very clear. Yes, it will play your Switch games, so please keep buying them. Right?
Yeah.
Because
this
we're months away from the Switch 2, so they certainly don't want people to be I want to save up so I'm not gonna buy Mario RPG or whatever.
I mean, effectively, that was the first thing they told us. That they told us that a few months ago, and before that, it had just been there is a successor coming, which is the most shit statement in the world.
But let us reiterate and also show you that you can buy those physical games; they'll be compatible still.
I think that considering how little there was to this, the fact that was in there, with the image, with the Super Mario Brothers Wonder card that works in the old Switch and it works in the new Switch, and you see it on both units and all, that shows you they felt that was really important. They felt obviously it was very important to have the new logo, which is just the old logo with the bloody big 2 on it. But these were the things they wanted to accomplish. I mean, in some ways, I kind of feel like this might have come later, that it would have been a bit of a tight, because it just feels like something with this relatively modest amount of information in it, and then this big long gap until April is like not the ideal kind of ramp up in a way. And of course, that's somewhat exacerbated by the fact that it's had, some of its thunder stolen by the amount of leaks that they've had. So that's, that wasn't a plan, obviously, but that's the way it's turned out. But, you can overestimate how many people live in the kind of information sphere where those leaks are actually kind of being talked about widely. Now that you've actually put this out there, it's a different phase. Mainstream outlets, news outlets are going to talk about it, and that is going to raise awareness of it in, places where, there's lots of people who might be interested, but they're not the kinds of people that were following, the potential leaks terribly closely. I'm sure those reports will mention that this information has been circulating, but it will be new to those people nonetheless. I guess the other part of it, we touched on this a little bit last week, is that, of course, in terms of what Guillaume said about, we can just go back to buying Switch stuff for a few months. We talk about if in terms of doing a Nintendo Direct, right? You almost couldn't do one until this particular elephant in the room was dealt with, and they have dealt with it now. So we can kind of get, and it's like, okay, we've dealt with it. Here's some important stuff. Not a lot of detail, but it's important stuff. And, we can now say, look, wait, it's April, specific date in April. That's where more stuff's going to come. Now we'll, kind of get back to, kind of normal, as much as they can, kind of somewhat normal service resuming, until then, I would imagine you'll have more stuff. I know we've got Xenoblade in March. We've got Metro Prime 4.
Donkey Kong just came out.
Yeah. I mean, it was the same day as DK. I mean, that was kind of interesting, wasn't it? You know what I mean? Like, you always think, clearly it had to be after Christmas. We talked about that last week. Like, they weren't gonna kind of dampen in any way, have any potential for dampening those, crucial, weeks where they sell a lot, a big chunk of what they sell for the whole year goes in that holiday period. It was going to be after that. But, it's kind of interesting. Would you leave it maybe until there was this void, wasn't it? It was like, well, we have DK in January, we have Xenoblade in March, maybe February would be when they would have talked about the new system. But, they've done it now, I guess, people, maybe they just went, well, the pre-orders for DK are done, so that's but I don't know how much that's really going to affect anything anyway. I'm sure DK is a pretty modest, it's a modest investment title, shall we say, in terms of how much development resources were put into it and what sort of returns they're probably, if I walked into that pun, they probably would expect from it commercially.
I assume the timing here. I don't think it's reactive because,
I wouldn't imagine so. No.
But it lets them book facilities with the freer hand. It lets them go ahead and do this lottery thing. That's going to take some planning. It lets them do manufacturing at scale and not worry about stuff leaking. Although obviously that didn't work out for them. Because when you're running a bunch of manufacturing lines, you can't control the narrative anymore because you've got Chinese workers.
Again, the kind of this sort of hobby that people have now about tracking shipments and all this stuff relative to in manufacturing and components and stuff is just seemingly inescapable. And that's the thing. We assume they've had to work pretty hard to try and avoid shortages, to try and hit that target that you talked about. They've been quoted in the press, the 20 million, if that's accurate. Then with the current circumstances of manufacturing and all that, the uncertainty involved and all that kind of stuff, it's going to take a lot of planning and a lot of lead time. And nowadays, that is lead time evidently where stuff is going to leak.
Yep. And look, once you have factory lines going, there's a lot of people in China, because that's where the factory lines are, who have very little at risk to try to sneak a picture of it and potentially gain some kind of clout for doing so. So, at that point, it becomes difficult to control the narrative. And so just having it out there, at which point a bunch of inert systems with no software in them, sure, it takes as many pictures as you want, doesn't do you any good. There's nothing new to be gained from that. The other thing is a lot of companies are going to be wrapping up their fiscal year in the next couple months. And they probably want to be able to say that, yes, we are going to be developing games for Nintendo's next system. But they probably didn't want to mention it until at least Nintendo did. So
yeah, well, we've already had a few cases, haven't we, of certain games being announced. Like they're kind of dancing around it a little bit. You know what I mean? It's just like, yes, it'll be on Nintendo something. Like it's a little bit. You've kind of put an end to that kind of in this more prominent, reporting period now. Like for some of the bigger partners, it's probably a nice kind of something to extend to them that is like you don't have to do that anymore. You can just switch to this is what it's called. We all know what it's called. You can talk about your kind of intentions regarding that, because that's just helps substantiate our case that it's going to have a great lineup of games when it launches.
Yeah, there's probably a little bit of like, hey, if you're going to be in the big, because I'm sure everybody who's going to be in the Direct already knows, and they're already working on it. I would say games that are going to be in it we're probably told like, hey, you could say that the publisher is working on it, but don't name this game. Like that's the condition for getting your slot. But publishers can at least say when investors ask them, are you going to be working on Nintendo's next system? They could say a name for the system. They could say, yes, we have X number of games currently in development if they want to. Or at least they could say we expect to have games within X period of the launch. Obviously they won't say the launch date because that would very much piss Nintendo off. But it frees them up to do a little bit more. It frees up some accessory manufacturers who don't claim to have black market switches. That they don't do that. Don't say shit like that. To talk a little bit about their product lines, or to start their manufacturing processes because they wouldn't want to be the source of the leak if it can be avoided. Maybe even start marketing what they're going to be selling. So it just frees up partners' hands a little bit. Right before the reporting periods, because investors are going to want to know, are you on this system? Because the last one was super important. And they're going to be able to say, yes, we will be on that system. We have games in development for it. And there could be some like perennial games, your Maddens, your FIFAs,
Madden. I mean, we had an email about that.
Well, yeah, I was going to use this as a transition.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of. I mean, it's not as if I'm not aware of it, obviously, but we had the email that just reminds you, that hasn't been on Nintendo hardware for eons. It's mad, isn't it, really?
I was about to go read that one, because Vincent asked, howdy, partners. Greg and James, congrats on your team's NFL victories this past weekend. That's so weird. It's so fucking weird.
It's in the it's a solemn occasion to evoke this character, but in the words of Agent Cooper, what year is this?
It's true.
1991, winning on the same day. That's like Conference Championship Sunday, 1991. Which involved the Bills beating Denver and Washington beating Detroit, who they're playing this week. So I mean, just go crazy with your numerology.
Oh God. We haven't had a Madden game on a Nintendo system since the Wii U launch in 2012. Do you think Madden will come back for Switch 2 and maybe college football too? With the Switch version of FIFA/FC now at feature parity with the PlayStation Xbox versions, I definitely think it's possible. Thanks and keep up the good work, Vince. Yeah. I mean, honestly, like the fact that we're not dealing with the weird poverty version of FIFA. I mean, they kind of had to because FIFA died, so they couldn't keep doing the.
Yeah, that did seem to create some sort of opportunity to finally intervene, because that is the big difference, right? Is that with the FIFA games, you certainly weren't getting something on parity with the other systems, but they did at least see fit to do this legacy edition thing, where it's just like, well, Switch is a popular platform, we'll just keep like releasing the same game with roster updates, and that's it. But they at least saw fit to do that. Madden has not seen fit to do that on Nintendo hardware. We had the the talk about the unprecedented partnership or whatever ahead of Wii U, and then, it went down the tubes so fast that, no sort of version of Madden was forthcoming from that, and then I guess there was nothing to have a legacy edition of as a result, kind of thing. So, all this, there's a certain path dependency to all these things, but that's because you had the transition from FIFA to EAFC with the soccer game, then it's, this is a kind of a moment to, you break that cycle and actually put a bit of investment in and have a game on Switch that obviously is going to be lacking, certain graphical fidelity and other things for the other versions, but fundamentally you can actually say, it's much, much closer in terms of features and gameplay and everything to its, kind of contemporaries on the other hardware.
Well, bear in mind with FC, they still have the PS5 and the PS4 versions, for example, right?
Right.
Like, they still coexist with the latest release.
No, that's the point. I mean, they're content for that kind of, like, it's such a big deal, right? I mean, it's such a universal thing. And I will say, have a look at, like, the UK sales charts and all that. Like, you do get a little bit with certain multi-platform titles, you will get a certain amount of actually breaking down what platforms draw the percentages on those sales, right? So it'll be like, okay, EAFC is perennially near the top of the charts, right? It's always selling. But like, it just based on certain, looking now and again at those charts and seeing what percentage comes from Switch, it's a respectable percentage at this point. Like, it seemed to actually work, right? The market did respond to the fact, you've actually made a real game, the real EAFC, the real FIFA kind of counterpart. Like, so that I don't, obviously it's very different in terms of, Madden and, college, if you did the college game, which is, finally re-emerged as well. Like, you would be talking about a different kind of market, obviously less global. And maybe there's different dynamics about that in terms of whether people are as kind of, willing to play like a kind of scaled down, even if it's just kind of graphically version. Because again, they haven't been doing anything like that for so many years now. I mean, there was, what do they call it on Wii? All Play, I want to say.
Something like
they
that,
had this, they had this kind of sub-brand EA did on Wii for like, not, like meant to be more inclusive, more accessible, maybe somewhat more arcadey. I can't remember exactly how they
It had some motion controls. Yeah,
stuff like that, like alternate versions on Wii. Again, because, primarily because Wii was just so big, I guess it merited them kind of doing that. But it's been a long time even since those days, so it's kind of hard to say, for them. I don't know how the numbers would add up on their end, but I think, is it possible? You have to think it's possible if you have a reasonable kind of projection for, if optimistic kind of projection for how much this system is going to sell and how much it's going to sell early. It could make particular sense to maybe get in near the start, right? Like, it would be August, right? For the start of the next season in the NFL's case. So, it may be that could be just, 6 weeks after the system comes out or something. It could be a good time it could be a good time to establish yourself on the platform. The fact that, yes, you are going to see, EA's sort of, mainstream products on this platform, and they're going to be worth playing. That it might be a good sort of marker to put down at that juncture, but I have no idea about the cost implications of that and how it, obviously everything is going to be about, getting the core versions of the game on PS5, PS4 and Xbox or whatever. That is the main thing. And then it's what can you divert, or what's, acceptable to add on to that process to have a kind of version on different hardware. But I would have thought it's worth considering at the very least.
Yeah. That's kind of where I'm at. Like, you touched on it with the international component, because there wasn't a football game. There wasn't a soccer game, depending on the term you want to use, in Japan. And like that was the Switch dominated that market. I mean, yeah, you could play the PS4, PS5 game, but the Switch so dominated that marketplace. If EA won,
I mean, Nintendo has dominated Japan one way or another for 20 years now. I mean, it just, basically once you get to the twilight of the PS2 era where DS and Wii come along, if you haven't had a significant presence on Nintendo hardware, you haven't had a significant presence in Japan.
Correct.
That is the simple reality of it.
But for that sport that has a name that is going to make this conversation incredibly confusing, there is like they had to have without there being any kind of significant competitor in the space, like being on the Switch was the only way that Japan would have access to a licensed game. And so I can see that there is a built-in marketplace there of like, okay, we can sell this in these markets and we'll make money. That obviously the NFL doesn't have. They're trying. Lord knows they're trying. But we're a long ways away from the NFL game being a major seller outside of North America.
It seemed to do, kind of pretty respectably. Always reviewed well, the way back in the Mega Drive versions, and they used to review exceptionally well in the British magazines and all that. There was certainly, and it introduced a lot of people to the game, in general, to the real sport, because those video games were so well regarded, and obviously a lot of the other EA Sports games were, popular. So if you liked playing, Madden existed before FIFA. The first FIFA, I think, was at the end and somewhere in 93. So if it had been numbered yet, it would have been called 94, but it came out in 93. But it definitely had certain amount of reach just as a video game by a major and kind of somewhat respected and trusted kind of developer of sports games. To some extent, the same would have been true with the NHL games. They were very well thought of, even if the NHL itself wasn't huge or anything. But yeah, obviously it still has an effect, and it's been decades since then, and the industry is so much bigger and development is so much more expensive, right? That it's like, if you're going to make these moves to kind of broaden your reach, it's going to cost money, and you got to be able to demonstrate that you'll make it back and then some. Yeah.
So that's the short way of saying it's more possible now than ever. Let's put it that way. Like I get their reticence to do it at Switch launch because Wii U burned them, but I guess it was probably it wasn't a priority after that, even when the Switch was proving successful, and so they just never the cost to get in to build a version that would work on Switch was just so high. They just said it wasn't worth it. But
the problem is that train just doesn't stop, does it? That's the other problem. You know what I mean? Like, it's difficult to do any kind of seeming significant reset because you just have to keep going. It's this huge endeavor. As I said, the development gets more and more, complicated and expensive all the time. And you're doing these updates now, this maintenance all year, round kind of thing. Or certainly, for many, many months after the game comes out, to support the ongoing monetization strategy of the game these days, rather than just, people pay for it and that's it. So, you're so caught up in all of that. It's tough to, that path dependency. You got to just get locked in. And that's why we talk about that you had to have that sort of enforced, somewhat by their own choice, I guess, with shall we just not keep lining FIFA's pockets when we probably don't have to, which is, frankly, a point of view I wish more entities would embrace. I think we'd all be better off. But, the fact is, that gave them the opportunity to kind of break that cycle. In this case, I guess you say the new platform might give them some sort of, but I understand with the college game, they're not doing that annually. Is that right? Necessarily?
I think there's one next year.
Oh, there is. Okay. I thought I'd read something that maybe it wouldn't be as they might actually take more time between installments, and it wouldn't be such a treadmill all the time. But
I mean, that it's possible they do get there, and maybe they do.
Problem is, I guess, if the first one, I don't know the particulars, but if it blew up enough that fuck that, let's really just milk this thing.
It did really well,
and it's not a shock, because again, there's a pent up demand for that because it was missing for such a number of years.
It did very well, to the point where there's now rumors of a bidding war for the college basketball license, because it's now in the cards as well. But it wasn't as big of a priority. But now that this one did well, 2K and EA are both allegedly gunning for that license. Because of course 2K has the NBA engine that they could use. Which is a fucking live service game that you pay $60 for. And it doesn't seem like they use the Madden engine for the college. I mean, obviously there's probably some overlap, but it feels like they built that thing more bespoke. So I don't know. Like it would be nice if EA bit the bullet and said, yeah, we're going to be there. And maybe they'll announce that in April. There should be enough time for them to announce it and get it out there. But EA obviously has dev kits. They've obviously were one of the first publishers to get them, because they're a big company that was going to get them hardware. They've had time to be working on it. Maybe because of the extra power this thing has, getting what they've built for the other systems running on it is more viable than it was for the original Switch.
Well, and again, it's, even though, what are we, something like 5 years into the PS5?
Yeah.
This is year 5, I should say, for so 4 complete years in, and then, this is the 5th for PS5 and series consoles for Microsoft and all that stuff. It feels like the previous generation has kind of hung around even more than others. I mean, previously ridiculously popular consoles like PS2 have held on for a long time, especially with these kinds of annualized update games. That's been true for quite a while, but it feels like, PS4 has still got, quite a comfortable place in the kind of gaming marketplace that isn't just relegated to, near obsolescence or anything. So depending on, and again, we don't know the particulars of this will have to be seen, yet with more details on software, but, depending on how close, Switch 2 can get to approximating that level of kind of experience. I would imagine that would have a fair determination effect on, whether you can do this without it being terribly costly and therefore it being worthwhile.
Yep. All right. I think that's probably all we really have to say on the Switch 2. I'd actually start saying that instead of successor.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's the Mario Kart bit. There's not a lot to that, of course.
We talked about it a little bit, where it looks like there's more. Yeah,
sure, but it feels like it's the safest choice, right? It's the big seller,
right.
In this, just can't be disputed. So you kind of have that glimpse, like you said, there was an analogous glimpse of Odyssey, in the Switch teaser back in 16. In that case, they probably felt like it's different from that trailer in general, isn't it? The whole thing, as we see, it felt more, John said passive aggressive, but it did feel more like it was like obligatory in a way, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, we kind of have to do this. We don't really want to, I mean, some of it's just the difference of this is a sort of next iteration for a particular brand rather than
right.
introducing a brand and introducing this hybrid device concept, and everything. So that it's all bound up in that. But, there's still some commonality in the videos, and one of them is, well, we got to give a glimpse of something. And in this case, they went with Mario Kart rather than, Mario Platformer, which commercially can't really argue with, but I guess it makes it even less kind of revelatory, you know what I mean? It's like, yes. Mario Kart's always going to look like Mario Kart, so there's not necessarily a huge amount to be kind of gleaned from just these few seconds, but I mean, it was enough that people have already kind of noticed some stuff like the starting grid on the track that you see has marked out 24 positions. So it's like, well, are we going to get 24 racers simultaneously? That would be, a change. If we do in certain modes or competitions or something. So there's that. There's some of the aesthetic stuff. The most obvious being that DK appears to be his movie counterpart. Now the design from the movie has been adopted. It's essentially, again, you only get like glimpses, but it looks pretty conclusively. I still haven't seen the movie, but it was back when like they did the trailer where he was first seen. That was like a topic of conversation.
He's more inflated. He looks like he's been blown up like a beach ball versus the more like trimmed, muscular but trim DK of the old.
Yeah, I mean, it's, the original like rare render of DK is kind of the muscular part, like you said, it's kind of like a furry Battletoad with like the hair, the sort of tuft of hair to make the silhouette of his head more banana-ish. So like the movie DK is still like heavily based on that. It's not like a massive departure from what I've ever seen of it, but it's got maybe a little more of the kind of Qatar Bay DK94 DK in there. And obviously this kind of, just some of it is bespoke for the movie, because even like Mario and Luigi don't look the same in the movie, right? They're kind of more expressive, they're more kind of flexible than the kind of plasticky kind of renders look, just because that's what you do. You do drama, they need to emote more than they do in your box art from the N64 era. But I do remember saying when the DK was shown in that movie, it's like, oh, I bet you they're going to use that design or something like it in the future. Like, this is no accident, or this is not something that would have happened without Miyamoto probably being very involved, approving and stuff, and that could be something that comes back. And then when they did all the theme park stuff recently, and it's all just like that, you've got the guy in the big DK suit, and you've got all the decorations and the rides and the theming and everything. And it's all just straight out of DKC Returns, which itself is just, heavily based on the Rare games of the 90s. I kind of felt like, I guess I was wrong. It's not happening. Like if they were going to do it, surely that, this sort of DK kind of, splurge that they went on with the theme park and putting games on NSO and bringing out DKC Returns again. Like you would have seen some trace of it in that theme park, or the merch that goes with it and all this stuff. And then there he is today in movie DK. I was genuinely surprised, but they do seem to have gone that way.
It did answer a question that I had been kind of mucking around in my brain. Who was responsible for the redesigns of the characters in the movie? Because not only DK looks different, Mario looks different, Luigi looks different. They're all, Toad has some difference. It's because again, they were designed to be more animatable, more emotive, that kind of stuff. Who is the designer of that art? Was it the studio, which I would presume that they had a big hand in it, or was it Nintendo? And then more importantly, who owned the right to those specific designs? Like,
it's an interesting question that it raises, isn't it? In that regard, yeah. I mean, it's because particularly with DK, it does just, with the others, they're close in. Bowser would right. You would include in this, I guess, as well. Where it's like, you've kind of tweaked the existing design. You maybe just for this particular purpose rather than like outright. Whereas DK is different enough that it's like, no, that's just a different design that also, might better fit the purpose that we're doing it for, but it is like significantly different. Again, I do like that in this trailer, just like you said, in terms of the size thing, like his arms are fucking enormous. Like he just plays up the absurdity more of like, this is a massive gorilla driving a go-kart. It's dumb.
Like he's inflated like a beach ball.
It's leaning into that a bit more. I don't know whether, like, some of the other characters to me seem, it's not like full on Super Mario Brothers Wonder to me, but obviously that's a bit different because it's a side scrolling game, even if the characters are polygonal still. But it does kind of seem like the other characters may also be a bit more towards like trying to, make them more like a Katabe art, like just that slightly kind of, they look a little kind of chubbier or a little kind of more squat or something, you know what I mean? Like the proportions and all, they just seem a little different from that, those were derived from N64 era renders, like Mario Kart 64 that we pretty much have been getting since then, for the decade since.
And actually, like I'm looking at the DK, a 4K image of DK from the movie, and this like tiny resolution back of a screenshot. It's not quite the movie design. It's actually bigger because his arms are so huge they're wrapped in front of him. And the face is a little bit different. The face is even more wide than it was in the movie. So I don't know. Maybe this is a third DK design we're dealing with now, or a fourth, I guess, if you want to be technical.
It could have been the case that basically there's like Nintendo's like, look, this is our design, we own it, and then but we've not used it publicly yet, but. Yeah. You then, as the movie people, can kind of iterate on that and modify it the way that they did with all the other designs to kind of make it suitable for their purposes. But meanwhile, over here we've got this modified one, and we're going to wheel it out when we choose to. And I guess this is it. This is the point in time where, sometimes we pre-release stuff, I'm sure, I remember looking at screenshots of, Mario Kart R, it was called, N64 one, pre-release, with, I think it was Magic Cooper was in it. And of course, he did not make it to the final game. He was swapped out for Wario, I think. I think Wario was missing from the earlier shot. So I guess it could still change. I'd be surprised. I would imagine there's been lots of thought gone into this and using this particular clip and stuff. And, this is going to be it going forward.
Yeah. And again, we saw, I think, maybe 8 seconds of video. At low resolution inside of a Switch screen, so
yeah.
We'll know a lot more soon enough.
All they really wanted to communicate is just like this thing is going to have a new Mario Kart again with that text bit that Guillaume already referenced. Well, this will play exclusive software, and, so it's just like such as Mario Kart. That's really all we kind of wanted to communicate, you would think.
And we were joking about it, like, part of the reason they want to be able to announce this is so companies can tell their investors, we're on the Switch too. They announced Mario Kart with this thing, so when their investors talk to them at the end of fiscal year, they could be like, "Are you going to make a Mario Kart?" Yes. For fuck's sake.
Yeah, I mean, it seems redundant, but someone would have asked it. I think we could be
When's there going to be a Mario Kart for this system? Jesus. Look, it's in the trailer. Go back and look at. Do you want to ask about tickets to the theme park too? While we're here, just get it over with. I did by accident the other day happen across an old episode because the podcast app I used after Google Podcast shut down, which fucking rip because that was a good app that didn't get in your way. Antenna Pod would be like, here's a random episode at a random point because you stopped listening to it 7 months ago. It was like 8:54 and it was us ripping on emails we had gotten from people where they were like, I'm going to ask you questions as investors at the investor briefing. Do that again, audience. Send us questions that you think the investors are going to ask about Switch 2 so we can answer them. Because that was a fun segment. And also, I don't think we give them enough credit for how stupid they are. I think we could do better. We can do better. So send them our way. But unless you have anything else, I think we're going to wrap up the Switch 2 talk.
Switch dos, as the cool kids say,
John, when's the last time you met a cool kid?
It's been a long time.
Okay. Just wanted to check. Wanted to make sure you weren't hanging out with children or something.
Just only for Street Pass.
Only for Street Pass. There we go. Your Honor, it was just to get the Street Pass puzzle pieces.
I just wanted the Street Pass puzzle pieces, Your Honor.
This had nothing to do with anything else.
No.
Why did you ask him to meet me here tomorrow? I need more puzzle pieces. That's it. That's all I needed. Lord. All right. Well, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to do probably some new business. I don't know. We'll figure it out during the break. So stay tuned for something. More content. 5.
Compatible with the first part of this podcast.
Right.
You don't know that. You don't know that. I might export my audio to the left ear for the first part and right ear for the second. We returned. We decided in the break we were going to do some new business. We don't have a ton of new business this week, and that's fine. You know, we spent a good amount of time on the Switch 2 announcement, considering it's only 160. No, it's not even that. It's 141 seconds long. But I'm going to kick new business off this week. I don't have a ton. It'd be nice to move through it. As I mentioned last week, I couldn't do anything, so it was nice to get to play some stuff. I bought WarioWare Move It when it was on sale over the holidays. I hadn't touched it. I think I told y'all that I bought it. I got through it. So I like it. It is very, very much, structured like WarioWare Shake It, which isn't that surprising because that was the motion control one, but not Twisted, which is the GBA motion control one. That was the Wii one. And, including the weird poses. They're all themed around this island god and the move stones, because Wario won a contest where him and 20 of his best friends got to go to an island vacation. And he seemed really upset that he had to bring his friends with him. And honestly, knowing the WarioWare crew, I actually for once agree with him. He should have just said, no, I'm going to pass on the other 19 slots. Thanks. But I'm a little bit surprised by this game. So I really like WarioWare games. I like the fact that they did something weird with Get It Together, but it did feel a little strange. Get It Together had that weird challenge mode that I enjoyed doing every week. But I got through pretty much all the content in Move It, with the exception of the multiplayer stuff, because I don't have a multiplayer person to play it with. In like an hour and 40 minutes, I'd unlocked all the mini games and played them pretty extensively. I feel like there's just not that many in this one. And maybe go ahead.
I feel like when I played it, I lost interest before I got to that point, and I never went back to it. So
that's fair.
I was really excited for it. Like I bought it first day, I think, and then I kind of forgot about it.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much got through it in about 3 sittings, and they were pretty short sittings. And yeah, I haven't been going after high scores or anything. I just kind of put it down. I think part of it is the poses are fine. There's a couple that are not. And what I mean by that is, WarioWare is about like rapidly moving through things. And with WarioWare Move It, the poses, you had the chicken, which you have in this one too. But now there's you have both Joy-Cons, so one's on your butt and one's on your nose. You have the Big Cheese. Big Cheese makes a return. Mm-hmm. And all those are fine. But there's one where I can't remember what, like Let Go or something like that, where the premise is you need to trust the Joy-Con and just let it go. And it just dangles from your hand. And then there's one where you drop your right Joy-Con, you rotate the left Joy-Con so the IR camera is facing your right hand, because we joked about it where like Nintendo will play with all the features at the start of the generation and then stop. Not the WarioWare folks. They'll play with all the features all system long. And then it does IR camera stuff. But like then there's one where it's literally put the Joy-Con down and pick it up. Is the activities to pick it up. And like I felt like those didn't feel good. They didn't always detect right. But also, if it had you transitioning between them in like remix, that could be a real pain, and you would just miss stuff because it's just not possible in the gap between them to move from one to the other. So I was like trying to get into neutral poses between every operation just so I could, get back, have a chance to get to the next stance. But yeah, like I feel like the theming of this one, the whole island theming was kind of weak. The story wasn't very fun. Cause like, that's the thing. Like, you don't think WarioWare and the stories, but the WarioWare stories are usually pretty ridiculous and are pretty fun. They didn't really do much with it this time. They go on a trip. Some things happen. The trip's over. The characters didn't really get to show off very much. You know, they're like, it's weird. Like, it felt like they kind of, especially after Get It Together, where they really seemed to lean into the characters. It felt like this one kind of, they were there and like Dribble and Spitz got to drive around for a little bit in a boat race, but we didn't really get much about them. Mona's in it, but barely does anything. It's a minor thing, but it does feel like there's a little bit of character missing from this game.
Yeah.
A little bit of the comedy's missing from this game. Like, it's still definitely funny. Like the narrator giving this very serious recitation of these legends of the voice is the name of the god of the island. And then like he gives this one about the chicken, and then finally he just lets out this "Bagok!" and then proceeds to continue reading in his very serious narrator voice. Like that stuff is pretty funny, and the narrator did a great job. But yeah, it's not. I don't know. It's lacking some personality, and that was kind of a bummer because to me that's one of the cool things about WarioWare. I think the poses do kind of make the process more complicated, and so. Like trying to remember exactly how you're supposed, because some of the poses, the difference is really like what angle you're holding the Joy-Con in. Is the Joy-Con rotated so it's vertical or horizontal? And like just remembering that from the name sometimes is kind of difficult. I feel like the ones where you have to pick the Joy-Con up and put it back down, those didn't work as well as I would like them to, which is weird. So yeah, like there's just some stuff here that didn't feel great. Like it was fine. There's definitely some funny stuff in it, and I got it on sale, so I'm not upset about it. I was just kind of surprised how much I bounced off it. Like it's not WarioWare Snapped, thank God, but it might be the weakest WarioWare besides Snapped, at least to me. And I've played them all, like even that weird GameCube multiplayer one. I really like the series, but yeah, this one, it felt weak. It felt like a weak entry, which is a bummer because we felt that way about Get It Together, where like the fact that the characters played differently was kind of an odd inclusion, and it didn't feel like the most involved entry, but they were trying something different to sort of make up the gap. This one is trying nothing differently, and I kind of miss them trying something different now. So, the 9-Volt one actually has a little bit of character. I'll give that one credit. The 9-Volt one is pretty funny, but yeah, it's not much. It's pretty light, and so that's kind of a bummer. Beyond that, for whatever reason, and I can speculate, I picked up Unicorn Overlord again, and it like almost just like subconsciously picked it up and started playing a new save on the higher difficulty. I think I'm on the second highest difficulty now, and it's quite a bit harder. I'm trying to do something different. I'm trying to play the game out of order because in theory you can do it. And I think that's part of the reason I picked it up. So I'd been thinking about picking it up for a little bit. I'm going to blame two things. I saw the Rohirrim movie over the holidays. Even though when it was announced, I'm like, that's going to be crap. This is the one about Helm Hammerhand. But not really. It's actually about the daughter they invented just for the purposes of this movie. She doesn't exist in any of the canon. They only have access to basically what's the footnotes in fucking Lord of the Rings when they're describing why it's called Helm's Deep. Because that wasn't its original name. That movie is, it exists. It ate up 2 hours of my time. That was all I needed it to do. But to say that Unicorn Overlord borrows liberally from the depictions of races, particularly elves, that Mr. Tolkien laid out would be an understatement. Now, to be fair to them, though, pretty much everything in the fantasy genre owes almost the entirety of their legendarium and their races to the work that he laid out in those books. So they're not alone in this. They're just particularly egregious in that their elves are very much like, we're gonna look at what the, specifically what, shoot, I'm blanking on the name of the...
Peter Jackson?
The elf...
Oh.
Well, no, the specifically the Sylvan Elves. Like, we are going to very much copy how the Sylvan Elves are depicted in Jackson's movie. We're going to go all in. They're egregious about it, to say the least. Maybe that was the spur. I don't know. Maybe it was that I recently started watching Frieren, which is also borrowing heavily from that kind of depiction. I don't know. Maybe it was the fact that Seren linked me to the speed run from Games Done Quick, because I mentioned that game. You can just go to the final boss if you want. You got to play the tutorial, but then like the final boss is just there. It's just, it tells you that the enemies here are level 40. You probably don't want to do this. In the speedrun tactic, apparently, you get through the tutorial really fast. You set the game on its lowest difficulty. And there's ways you can cheese your way to the end of the game. It's like a 26-minute speedrun. It's nuts. Maybe it was a combination of those three things. And that was enough to get me to play it again. But, I talked about this game back in March, and I don't have a lot to add to it, but trying to play it from a different angle. So I'm trying to avoid the obvious, where it's like, go to Drakengard, then go to the elf community. Then it doesn't even tell you where to go next, but there's 2 more islands, or 2 more continents you can go to. I tried to beat my head into the 3rd continent. Like, just bypass continent 2 and 3. And like, they tell you, like, go here or go here, but you probably want to go here, because that one's more manageable. The Elves one's is quite a bit stronger than the Drakengard one. I said, fuck that. I'm going to go to the 3rd continent where everything's level 25, and I'm going to tactics my way through it. It didn't work out. So I skipped the 2nd one and went to the 3rd one, and I had to really just beat my face into a wall to get through that mess. But the lack of permadeath in this game does sort of change the stakes a lot. In a sense that, like, I'm just going to throw units into the machine and let them get chewed up, because that serves an immediate purpose and gets me through this level. So it kind of decreases the amount of tactics you have to employ. But still, yeah, this difficulty is quite a bit harder than normal. It is consistently putting up a challenge in places where I remember the game was more or less just a pushover. I still don't agree with the time limit on the missions. It's so stupid that this battle took 1 minute and 1 second, and they wanted me to take 1 minute, and therefore you lost. It's a dumb inclusion. I get why it's there, because a lot of the battles are super small, and it's a way to keep you from turtling until the enemy runs out of units. But sometimes that's the right strategy, because they're just running down on you. So, we're going to get to games of the year probably next year. This is going to be on it for me. I cannot tell you where it's going to land right now. Like, it could be between 1 and 5. I don't know. But it's still, like, despite my issues with it, it's still very good. Like, I picked it up 10 months after I spent 60 hours with it, and I've put like 13 in it in the last 4 days. It's a very good second screen game a lot of time. So, yeah, if you haven't played it, you should play it. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I did get really, really, really upset during the Games Done Quick speedrun, and I want to specifically call them out. They described it as, it's like Fire Emblem and Pokemon, and I'm like, I want to hurt you. Not personally, but personally, with a truck. Because it's not like either of those games. It's like one very specific game. It's like one very specific game. You can just name it. Oh, God. Like, every time, I said it like 4 times, and every time I said it, I wanted to die. I may have also been trying to wish them to death, but, you know, it's fine. It's fine. It's like Ogre Battle. That's it. It is a wholesale theft, but it's a good theft because nobody else is going to make those. But yeah, you should check. I mean, both those games are worth checking out. I definitely wouldn't pay price for WarioWare Move It, though. Or Move It? Yeah. I definitely wouldn't pay full price for that. You should just wait for a sale. And then any of the Vanillaware games on Switch, they're all good. They're all very good. They're all very good. You should play them. So yeah. That was how I spent my week in the playing games. John, what have you been up to?
Well, let's see. So I did finish Firewatch, which is not saying a whole lot since that game takes about 4 hours to go through. But, you know, I was very curious about it because I remember when it came out, everybody was saying it was so emotionally impactful and all of that.
Did you cry?
No. I mean, the most emotional part of that game is the intro to it, I think.
Yeah. It's
I mean, after that,
it's all text.
Yeah, and after that, it's just a bunch of snarky banter with this other woman in the other lookout, as you kind of stumble across a mystery and then wander around a bit and figure it out. So, I thought it was fine. Certainly, I mean, the way I've seen some people talk about it on Reddit, for instance, is just like, oh my god, this game was so emotional and I cried and everything. I'm just like, I just don't see it. It's not a bad game, but it's worth a playthrough just because it is really short and it tells kind of an interesting little story for what it is. And also, since it was on sale for $2 on the PlayStation Store, I picked up Titanfall 2 and played through that campaign. Another short campaign, probably takes you about maybe 8 to 10 hours to go through it. And it is probably the best campaign I've played in almost any first-person shooter. It's absolutely incredible. All the levels are varied. None of them are really repetitive.
So good.
They have you doing very different things with your mech. And of course that game's from 2016 and it's a PlayStation 4 game and it still looks incredible.
And it doesn't feel like anything's picked up the baton from it.
No. I mean, they spun off Apex, but I'm almost tempted to play that again just to refamiliarize myself with it, but it didn't. I do not want to play a battle royale shooter. I don't care about them, and I really don't. Like, the only thing that would draw me into Apex is its tie-in with the universe of Titanfall. Like, aside from that, it's just, and really, I guess the crossover there is not really so much story or anything, but just a couple of characters. Like at the end of Titanfall 2, some of the mercenaries, which the mercenaries are actually they call themselves the Apex Predators, hence ties into Apex Legends. So, but a couple of them actually survive the events of Titanfall 2, and I guess they probably make an appearance in Apex. But
Did you play Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order?
I played a little bit of Fallen Order.
They're really good. They're also really good.
Yeah, they're good. Like I kind of bounced off of Fallen Order just because I felt like I got the point pretty early. And it's you know how it is with some games where you play you play the first 5 to 10 hours of the game and you're like, okay, well this just goes on for another 30 hours and it's pretty much the same thing repeated. That's kind of how I felt about Fallen Order. But I mean, yeah, that game. I actually looked up. I'd forgotten that they had done Fallen Order and Survivor, and so I looked it up, and I was kind of disappointed. It's like they make such good first-person shooters, they really do, and not everybody does, and it bothers me that Electronic Arts they chose to push Battlefield instead of Titanfall, because Battlefield is just I could not care less about it. And it's always going to be, to me, second fiddle to Call of Duty. It's just basically Pepsi to Call of Duty's Coke. And like, that's what they chose to push and propagate rather than Titanfall, which is actually unique. It has an interesting universe, really cool. The mech, playing in the different mechs is really cool. It's really unique. And I don't feel that Battlefield is unique really at all. So it's disappointing.
I mean, I that's probably why they picked it. Like, it's much more. I don't want to say mass market friendly, but mass market approachable and easy to market. Like, the appeal of Titanfall, the mech is part of it, but really it's about the locomotion. The locomotion in that game feels unbelievable. Yeah, and not in the mech, on foot.
Yeah, all the wall running is really, really
good.
The
wall running, the jumping, the platforming, and that's the stuff that actually makes it into the Jedi games. Like, that stuff survives, and it feels really good. Yeah. Even though it's third person now. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like, they're really good. Like, I'd love to see them make a platformer. Because I think they could nail it. Yeah. Like something like, what was was it EA who had the first person platformer?
Yeah. Yeah, Mirror's Edge?
Mirror's Edge, yeah. Like, they could easily do something like that. That'd be cool as hell.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it does feel like they picked the franchise that was more approachable, and that's also why we got a battle royale out of them. Which, yeah. I mean, Apex did pretty well in its moment, at least.
Yeah, I mean, and I was thinking about that. That I haven't really heard much about Apex Legends for a long time. Aside from the fact that its mobile game had been canceled. There was a mobile version that in 2023 got canceled. So, but
it came out in 2019. Like, it's been around for a while.
Yeah.
So I think it's still going. I don't know that it's getting new content, but I think it's still reasonably popular.
Yeah. I mean, it was really popular when it first came out.
Oh, it was big. It was big, and they probably made more money in that window of time than they did on the two Titanfall games.
Yeah, I mean, they probably use it to fund Fallen Order at the very least.
Oh my god! I think EA took care of Fallen Order's money.
Yeah.
But Fallen Order and Survivor both feel really good. They both feel really good.
Yeah, but I mean, anybody that wants to just play a really good campaign in a first-person shooter, definitely. I mean, it's $2 on the PlayStation Store right now.
Yeah, and it's what, like 5 hours?
Yeah, it's not long. Maybe 6. I said 8 to 10. Honestly, I can't even tell you that it would be that long. I bet there are Titanfall 2 speedruns that are fucking ridiculous. Oh yeah, you could really go through it really quickly with the wall running. Oh my god.
Is it like, what's the level design? Like, are you like, is it mostly linear or is there like exploration? Like, is it kind of like Call of Duty or Doom?
Would you take this, John? You played it more recently than I have.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of it is fairly linear, but the environments are very they're very interesting.
Like obstacle courses?
Kind of, yeah.
There actually is a level that is an obstacle course.
Yeah, like that's the training area. But but a lot of them, they do lean very, very heavily on the wall running. So it's not like a corridor run sort of thing. You know, things are very, very, very vertical in certain ways.
The Prince of Persia games that came out on GameCube, PS2, Xbox era, that's kind of an interesting parallel here.
Yeah.
Like, and how the levels are laid out.
Yeah, and and the thing is, I feel like I'm struggling to describe it because it doesn't really have something that's similar to it, which is what makes it so interesting.
It is more corridor-like than not. Is probably the way of saying it. Like, there's the obstacle course at the start. There's the land reclamation stage, which is basically just an obstacle course. But it's almost like Mario 3D Land in that one, because it's like there's narrow paths, the platforms are all moving, and you have to time your jumps around the platform movement.
But you're also not locked into being outside of your mech or inside of your mech necessarily.
Right.
Like you can get out and run around.
Right.
And your
in
mech
some stages,
will do other stuff.
In some stages you are forced to be on foot.
Yep.
Like the land reclamation area, you're on foot. And those are the places where the game gets more Mario 3D Landish, where it's like, no, here's a bunch of platforming.
Yeah.
But then there are areas that are more like traditional shootery spaces.
Yeah. And but you're generally moving through bases and then running around on walls, and then sometimes you'll meet up with your mech, and part of the level will be destroying other mechs, and then you'll hop back out of your mech, and then you'll run around some more. So it really switches things up in really kind of innovative ways. So it's an incredibly good game.
1 hour, 12 minutes, 51 seconds is the current top speed run.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can see that.
It's so fast. That's an any percentage, not a all helmets stuff.
Yeah. And I would imagine on Game Pass, I would think if you have Game Pass Ultimate, you have EA Play, so you get this for free.
You do. And you get the 2 Star Wars games.
Yeah.
I think at some point I did buy like the Ultimate Edition or whatever it's called for cheap on Xbox.
Yeah, it was like $5 or something, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I just haven't gotten around to it yet.
Yeah.
But maybe after Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
These are all good games for Xbox.
It's a perfect game to play through on a weekend. You can just burn right through it.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that's what I did. I think I played through it in like 2 days.
Yeah, you can just throw it on regular difficulty, which is challenging in some places, but not that hard at all. And
it's not terrible.
I took longer than normal just because I had a collectibles guide, so I got all of the pilot helmets. But I mean, if you didn't do that, I mean, you could burn through that game. There's only I think there's nine levels in the campaign, and they're probably, I don't know, what do you think, a half an hour each, something like that.
Yeah. How long to beat estimates about 6 hours for an average run.
Yeah.
All right.
And it's totally worthwhile. It doesn't stick around too long. So, yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah. Turns out Respawn makes good games.
Yeah.
Go figure.
Yeah.
Go figure.
Yeah, that's all I had this week.
Cool. All right. Guillaume.
Yeah. So, so one of the things, I don't know, like I saw before the holidays, I saw that there was a sale for a physical copy of Smash Brothers Ultimate. And I thought, you know what, like the Switch has been around for almost 8 years. Maybe this is the time to get into this game. The time
is finally here?
Yeah.
I forgot you didn't have it.
No, because I'm not a huge fan of Smash Brothers in the first place. But, you know, like I like all the characters. I like I don't know. So I thought...
There's so many DLC characters you haven't played as.
Yeah. So I haven't gotten DLC yet, but they show up anyway in the game. So you know, like I'm beating them up, but I just can't select... Belmont is Belmont in this game? Yeah, right.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But the Belmonts were additions to the base Ultimate game. They were additional for the compared to Smash for 3DS and Wii U, but they weren't DLC for Ultimate. Right. They were part of Ultimate.
They are non-DLC.
Oh, okay. So what? Okay, maybe
you just haven't unlocked them yet.
Ryu was DLC.
Ryu is DLC on the Wii U game.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Ryu and then Ken was new for Ultimate, but as part of the base game.
King K. Rool then. Give me...
King K. Rool's in the base game.
Yeah, I think...
Fuck me. Anyway, whatever. Like, so I know nothing. That's the thing. Like, I can talk about Smash Brothers, but
a lot of the DLC was kind of featuring the external characters. You know, that was kind of a big part of it. You know, in terms of like Terry and Sephiroth. There was a lot of that in the Dragon Quest Hero was another one. A Joker was the first of the DLC characters from Persona 5. So that's
Piranha
a lot
Plant, Banjo
Piranha
Kazooie.
Plant was it was like a bonus. I think you kind of got it anyway if you got the game early, but that it was technically DLC. Yeah.
Okay.
It's Piranha Plant, Banjo Kazooie, Min Min, Pyramithra, Joker, Terry, Minecraft, Kazuya, Hero from Dragon Quest, Byleth, Sephiroth, and Sora and his dumb clown shoes.
Okay, so scratch what I said, that I don't have the DLC characters showing up in the single player as I'm playing. But so my thought, like, before I asked for this game for Christmas, I asked Karen, like, well, if I get this, will you play co-op with me? And she was like, yeah, sure. But then she kind of changed her mind. And also, I hadn't realized that there's not that much co-op in this game. Not as much as there used to be in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, where you could play the entire Subspace Emissary mode co-op. In this game, World of Light, this game's Subspace Emissary is solo only. And so, really, the only co-op that you can play, really, is the classic mode. I don't know, like where you kind of go through a series of like was it like 8 or 10 battles in a row.
Yeah.
So you can do that, and you do unlock characters that way, so that's good. But yeah. Yeah, so I don't know, like I guess I'm going to be chipping away at it, but it's kind of funny that, you know, this game's tagline was basically like, everyone is here, you know, but then you start the game, and you guys might not remember this, but like no one is here when you start it.
Oh yeah.
So you start with just Kirby in that World of Light, but also if you play like regular games, you've got like the 8, you know, N64 characters basically, and no one else, and so you gotta unlock everyone. And so I'm not struck by like, like so many options, like everyone is here. No, it's like it's just Mario and Pikachu and Kirby. You know, like okay, it's a little bit boring. But yeah, I guess I'll keep chipping away at it. It's just not, or maybe I'll just go straight download the DLC characters, which I hope the game is not going to be like, yeah, okay, but you got to play through the game for this amount of time before they even show up in the character selection screen.
I think you just get a new challenger approaching alert, like when you beat somebody to unlock them. It just bypasses that whole process. It's been a while.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, we'll see. The other, I guess, observation I can make is that I'm not very good at Smash Brothers. I don't have a natural talent for it. I don't have like the muscle memory. Like I realize as I jump and try to do just a down smash on someone and miss wildly, like wow, I'm not used to the physics of these games. I'm not used to like I don't have the reflexes of like dodging in midair or using the shield at all most of the time, or grabbing someone. I'm trying to implement that, but more. But I kind of wish there was like a more robust kind of tutorial mode, almost. And yeah, like I've been playing more fighting games in the past year or 2 years. I find that those skills don't transfer. So yeah, it's really its own game, the mascot platformer. Like it's you know, it is a fighting game, but it might as well be a completely different genre. Yeah. Anyway, so I don't think I'll report back on this unless I make some amazing discovery, but because everyone has played this so much already. But yeah, like it should time me over until the Switch 2 comes out, I guess.
Till they announce a new one in 3 months.
Right. Well, I don't know.
Get to unlock them all again.
The dude, his name escapes me.
Sakurai
has been making those YouTube videos about game making for so long. I can only imagine that it just occupied all his time, and that he hasn't been working on anything. So
actually, he has let the mask slip and said that he'd already started his next project. But yeah, it was funny. There were people who actually legitimately were like, "Well, he's been making YouTube videos." Like, how much time do you think he spends making the average one of those YouTube videos? I'm gonna give you a hint. It's not that long.
Right.
So it's not his.
He only sleeps like a couple hours a night anyway, probably. So.
Well, because he's busy learning how to play 3 Switch controllers at the same time. Whatever dumb bullshit he was doing.
Yeah. So okay. So yeah. So once he's done with his current project, Kid Icarus Uprising 2, I'm sure he'll get to work on Super Smash Bros. Ultimate.
Is that game financed by hand surgeons or financed by physical therapists? It's one of the two. It's true. You know what? Get that money. He brings demos to them, and they're like, I don't know. This doesn't feel like it's going to cripple your thumbs quite well enough. Can we make that there? There's the hand. That hand grip is terribly unhealthy. Let's do that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he still plays Monster Hunter on the PSP just for the experience.
He's modded a PSP case so he can do the claw
right
into the Wii. He's modded his Switch to have the claw controls. I don't see what the problem is. This is perfectly normal.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Greg, why don't you take us home on new business?
Yeah, not a lot to say. They played terribly much this week. I do have a copy of Unicorn Overlord because there was a sale a few weeks ago. It was far too good a price to ignore for a physical copy. But it does, yeah. I mean, given the crawl through something like Mario and Luigi Brothership, it does slightly intimidate the.
It is excellent second screen material.
Sure, that's true. You know, could kind of, maybe have a little bit more flexibility in how you spend the time with it, but it does kind of make you wonder how long it would take. So, but, you know, I'm glad to have the option, because it's very premium on the eShop over here anyway. It's something like, I can't remember, it's nearly 60 quid, I think, you know, whereas like the physical sort of deals, it was more like 20 odd. So, I mean, it seems way too good to turn down. And, hopefully I'll get to it eventually. But like I say, probably just getting to it probably wouldn't necessarily be immediate, but B, good lord, how long it could take to actually make significant inroads with it would be another thing. But in the meantime, I've still been chipping away. I'm not sure I mentioned it on the show before, but I've just been chipping away at this very casually, very occasionally, in just little bites. The Nintendo World Championships NES thing. So, it is basically what everyone thought it was going to be. Is kind of like a reworked NES remix with this all kind of World Championships theming laid on top of it. I mean, I guess the biggest difference you were mentioning earlier on, WarioWare get it together, in the weekly competitions and stuff. Like that's one of the sort of main distinguishing features, I guess, here is just the fact that, you get these different competitions refreshing, all of the idea of like, some are like kind of general, like it's like, okay, we've made 5 little, challenges in a row and, see who can post the best times, cumulatively, against everyone. And it'll sort of tell you, what sort of percentile you're in for each, challenge. And it'll also tell you what percentile you're in for your demographic, which is okay. Like that feature would make more sense to me if this was like a game where the challenges spanned a bigger length of time. You know what I mean? Like if this was Nintendo World Championships and we've got NES, we've got Super NES, we've got N64, across a period, of some 15 years or something, and then it would be like, you were in this percentile for this challenge overall. But, for the people, you were somebody that grew up with Super NES rather than NES or N64 by your age. So, like, actually, for those people, you did, I don't know, relatively worse because all those people are, like, really good at that challenge or something. That would make sense. Like, the NES, it's not that long a period of time in America and Europe, especially Europe, I guess, So, yeah, for, like, the Nintendo releases that are actually covered here. So, I guess it's kind of cute, but, superfluous kind of distinction. But yeah, the point is you have those to keep coming to check in with and just see if you could kind of post a decent time for certain challenges. And then you've just got the big kind of grid of the different challenges for each game. I've almost finished now. There's not some of them that are quite it's quite a limited range, but I guess, for some of the games they're more simple. There's only so much you could kind of do. Others, they get lots of mileage out of, like there's relatively quite a lot of challenges for something like Super Mario Bros. 3 and Kirby's Adventure, because those are, more kind of diverse, more kind of, sprawling, relatively, kind of NES games. But just at that very kind of last, you do get some challenges that are a bit more kind of, long form. Like, for instance, the final one of Super Mario Brothers is like, you start from 1-1 and it's use warp zones to get to, to expedite how quickly you can get to the end and beat Bowser. Like, that's the challenge. That is something that's going to take, some matter of minutes rather than the vast majority of these things. Again, as was, the case with, NES Remix are things that might be over, much more quickly, a matter of seconds. So, that's kind of, nice they have that, at the very end, and you get all these sorts of, in-game like badges and stuff for completing the various challenges. So I've nearly done all of those, but just the kind of thing that you can kind of pick up and if you feel like trying something quickly, even if at this point, having done most of the challenges, if I log into one of those competitions, like it's going to be stuff I've already seen, obviously, but it still kind of fulfills its purpose relatively well.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that does it for new business, and that also does it for this show where we had nothing of consequence that happened to talk about. So you could send your emails, I don't know what you'd ask about, to rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. That is rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. That's where you send your emails to this show, and then we answer them. Allegedly, not this week. Well, no, we did 2 this week. That counts. We did 2. Yeah, it was organic. But sometimes we do whole dedicated segments. So you could send them. Please send them. I'm asking you to send them. You'll make me cry if you don't send them. That's rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. You don't want me to cry. It's a mess. And on that, Greg, what is our music to wrap this episode up?
Well, if we go with something a little bit different this week, I alluded to it earlier on the 16th anyway, it's the 17th now. But it was the day we learned that David Lynch had passed away, from, complications with, emphysema. I think he went public with that, some months ago. For me, Lynch, a big part of that, I've been seeing Lynch stuff, like I said, from a very early age. That last episode of the original run of Twin Peaks in the 90s, I think, went out over here right around my 7th birthday. So all his visual tropes and tricks and all that are just kind of scorched into my brain, and, loved all the stuff that came after, Lost Highway and, Mulholland Drive, and going back to, stuff that came before, like Blue Velvet and Wild at Heart. Huge fan. But of course, also, he was quite influential on, not just other, people in film, but also video games, especially because Twin Peaks seemed to have an outsized kind of impact in Japan. Didn't it? For whatever reason, that seemed to really kind of strike a few chords in Japan. I don't know whether it's that kind of, that 50s inflectedness to it, and obviously, the 50s American culture kind of had a big sort of role to play in Japan with the the occupation and the reconstruction of the country. So I don't know whether that was part of it or just Lynch's kind of particular kind of flavour that he brought to it. But as a result, you had things like Zelda, in particular, Link's Awakening. Apparently, Lynch's co sort of creator of the show, Mark Frost, explicitly said recently that Nintendo wanted to talk to Mark Frost about making a Zelda game that would take inspiration from Twin Peaks, which is surprising that it was ever that explicit. Although it's there's so many of it touches the presence of the owl and all this kind of stuff that feel very overt, as well as the general the dream scenario, the quirky characters. There's obviously a lot of the broad thematic stuff there, and then of course so many games that have elsewhere that have drawn a lot of inspiration from Lynch's works. You could think of stuff like Silent Hill series in general, or for me particularly the Shattered Memories. I felt like had a lot of kind of homage to Lynch, and Alan Wake, of course, and just it goes on and on. So I mean, you had even though of course the films were seldom very commercial, to say, I think the adaptation of Dune pretty much put him off commercial filmmaking for the rest of his career, because he didn't enjoy that experience, and then he just did what he wanted to do for the rest of his career, basically. So certainly seems like he did what he wanted to do. I mean, that there's a scene in the Twin Peaks: The Return, the limited series, whatever you want to call it, where Harry Dean Stanton is reprising a character that was in Fire Walk With Me, the film from Twin Peaks, and he talks about basically the fact that he just smoked his entire life and he lived to be this ripe old age, you know, and the almost like the kind of the weirdness of it and the sort of good fortune of that. And then like shortly thereafter, like a child is killed in a car accident. And it just, you kind of thought about that today of just how much like, I think even then when Lynch would have been coming up on 70 rather than, 78 that he's passed away at now. This was a man who recognized he was fortunate, to live the life that he done, and, kind of, the way he done it, but was grateful for all of that, but also had absolutely no regrets either, so pretty solid way to go in that sense, I suppose. But in terms of something musical, well, I mean, you're kind of spoilt for choice. His long-time musical collaborator, Angelo Badalamenti, he passed away a couple of years ago as well. But of course, you'll go on Twin Peaks and Blue Velvet and all the stuff they work together on. But I've gone for something, that's a little bit more of a, less obvious corner of Lynch's filmography, which is The Straight Story, which is in many ways, very much what it sounds like, in that it's a very peculiarly orthodox kind of film from Lynch. It's, lacks a lot of the just complete narrative craziness that he would indulge in a lot of the time, just so he could put his visual, kind of tricks on screen. And instead, it's just based on a true story of a man that sort of journey to see his ailing brother on a John Deere tractor over a very long sort of stretch of road. And so the soundtrack as a result is very kind of different from a lot of the stuff. It's got that rustic kind of quality, but I will say it's got one thing in common with, so we might think of Lynch as being this sort of master of surrealist nightmare, inscrutable stuff. But, some of those soundtracks that he and Badalamenti kind of collaborated on are just some of the most relaxing things you've ever heard. If you want to kind of decompress or something, it's seldom I've encountered anything better. And this is one such track called Lauren's Walking. And just, you can almost picture the kind of plodding but pleasant journey through, the American countryside as this progresses.
All right. Well, on that, it is time for us to go. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Later.
Bye-bye.